So we're jumping into the narrative here. And this is an interesting question because Battletech, 40K Knights versus Battle Mechs. Now, Battletech, since its inception, the timeline has not been static. It's been slowly advancing, or sometimes very, very fast in its advance. We've got Star League, we've got the Inner Sphere, we've got the clans, we've got the Restoration, we've got the Dark Ages, we've got a couple of other time periods that many players may or may not want to forget about. But the great thing about Battletech is you can take your mech collection and play any of those time periods. And what was interesting, playing a campaign with a Stalker against the clans. At the start of the invasion, the Stalker had just standard outfit, standard Stalker, Inner Sphere. But throughout the campaign, I was able to upgrade it with clan tech, restore it with clan tech, and it became more of a beast. And from the perspective of having a model, I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. I'm getting to explore literally physically this model in so many different ways. It was really, really fun. Now we jump into Warhammer 40K, because if we have this showdown, we have to set the stage. And while we're focusing on Knights and Titans and Battle Mechs, we kind of have to ask the question Combined Arms too, because that exists very much in the 40K universe. So now the question is, with 40K, the time period has been kind of static in terms of the rules. And I say that because we have the narrative absolutely, the Emperor, the Imperium, Horus Heresy, and then, looking at Primaris recently and kind of the evolution of all that. Game-wise, 40K has been pretty static, unless you kind of jump into Horus Heresy, which I've played. So I say that because while both narratives have advanced, Battletech has rules for those advancements. 40K is catching up with it. I say that because to make this comparison, I have narrative, what I've seen in the tech manuals, what I've seen in the 40K stuff. I've got narrative Battletech novels and Black Library novels. I've read Horus Heresy like crazy. Love it. Exploring that. And then, of course, the rules. Trying to look at the rules and say, well, what does a mech do in Battletech and what does a knight do in 40K? And, of course, looking at scale. So I see essentially knights as the equivalent to battle mechs. And maybe the higher end battle mechs, 2 or 3, maybe a lance could go up against a light titan. But I see a definitive kind of hard stop when we get into titans proper. They're massive, massive war machines. I mean, they will just crush things. They're city destroyers. I mean, just what we see, if I'm going recent implementation, the Horus Heresy trailer on the Warhammer Plus and the Warhammer channel, where Horus is let the galaxy burn and overlooking. That's a really interesting video because it is showing not only titans in action, true titans, but it's showing the combined arms aspect of 40K. That is extremely interesting. So I think we just need, if we're going to do Battletech versus 40K or Battletech mechs versus 40K mechs, it needs to be all of the battle mechs and it needs to be the knights from that perspective. I see knights smoking mediums. I see them taking on a couple of heavies. From that perspective, there's some tech in 40K, even if we don't understand it. Mechanicus doesn't understand it. That doesn't necessarily exist in Battletech. What I do see with Battletech, even if we're looking at Succession Era, Inner Sphere, definitely Star League, the production capacity of the Inner Sphere, you can field a lot more mechs than you can Titans, if we're looking at that perspective, or I should say Knights, baby Titans, that perspective, looking at it. I think they'll field more and just swarm them. So Knights more powerful, but battle mechs more plentiful, and the heavies and the assaults, even though they're going to be a little bit dwarfed, I think they could do it. Now the question is, in the comments, would it be a better analogy, almost like mechs equal battle armor and knights equal mechs from that perspective? jumping into the combined arms, because it's absolutely worth mentioning. Going back to this Horus Heresy video, and I say the Horus Heresy trailer teaser video because that's showing knights in action. That's showing titans in action. I mean, we have some fan stuff. We have some of the older Armageddon, Final Liberation PC games from back in the day where we've seen these knights and we've seen titans in effect. But to truly see their scope, when we see the combined arms, I see the 40K tanks as very ponderous, as very slow. They have a lot of firepower. I think in general, for the size of the tank, they might have more firepower than Battletech. But I see Battletech tanks as being a lot more nimble. Some of them bring a lot more firepower and just a lot more designs of it, able to take advantage of any weaknesses or any exploits. So I see on the combined arm kind of area, I think the Battletech universe, and we're not talking about like generic fusion engine tanks, even though they work, and essentially that's what the 40K tanks are for. Well, I guess at that point it would be Imperial Army. It wouldn't necessarily be Imperial Guard if we're talking Horus Heresy. But even the Battletech tanks for the time period have some high tech. Fusion reactors, PPCs, a.k.a. las cannons. We have certainly high-level, high-functioning, high-tech armor, reactive armor in 40K, and we have that in Battletech, although sometimes in 40K it's just a slab of something protecting you. But in exploring that, I think the combined arms tanks, Battletech is going to win out or have the potential to put more. Now, when that's combined with mechs, how does that work? In terms of the battlefield itself, this is where I think 40K has an advantage if we're looking at infantry. And for infantry, I'm going to combine Imperial Army / Imperial Guard. I'm going to combine Space Marines from that perspective. Just a society that's mobilized for total warfare. So I think the Imperial Army would be similar to Inner Sphere type troops, especially given the diversity of the different guard regiments, depending on the home world. You could have something that, if I look at it, is kind of higher end tech, like Cadians with their supply and las cannons and las guns. I mean, it's not very effective las guns, how they portray it, but it's still very, very high enough tech level. Now, Battletech certainly has that with laser platoons, but you've got machine guns, you've got missile platoons and things from that aspect. So if we explore that, I'd say that's pretty equal. But the Space Marines, of course, that's the big difference. Nothing matches that as in 40K to Battletech that I can think of. I mean, Blake fanatics, not really. But are there enough Space Marines? And I know the lore that says, like, there's only 1,000 chapters and less than one Space Marine for every planet in the Imperium, ... But that is enough. I mean, okay, yeah, 40K Grimdark. I'm there with you. But logistics-wise, if we're talking about, Inner Sphere versus 40K Imperium, got to take the aliens and the heretics out and everything like that. From that perspective, I don't think the Space Marines have enough to really make an effective difference in a total overall war. Although I guess if Horus is leading, anything's possible. But this is a big, big context. And I feel like if you're going to ask the question, Titans / Knights / Baby Titans versus Battletech, everything is so intertwined in the 40K universe. And the Battletech universe, you've got to jump in. You've got to look at those combined arms. You've got to look at the tech level with the tanks and the infantry and the logistical support with how that works. What Battletech doesn't have, psychers and that type of, do we call it magic or whatever we're going to port it over as, would that make a difference? I mean, this is a bigger question. Your thoughts in the comments. We'll try. We'll narrow it down. Mechs and mechanics, 40K versus Battletech.